The morning began the same way most mornings did for 10-year-old Maya, quiet, gray, and a little too heavy for someone her age. The sky outside her bedroom window was still pale with dawn, streaked with thin, sleepy clouds. The world seemed undecided, caught somewhere between night and day. But Maya was already awake, lying still beneath her blanket, staring at the ceiling as if waiting for something to shift. She always woke early now. Ever since her dad left. It had been almost a year since his deployment, but the ache of missing him hadn't softened. Instead, it had settled inside her like a stone cold and unmoving. Some days she carried it well, other days, like today, it felt impossible. Her sketchbook lay open on the nightstand, untouched for months. It used to be filled with drawings, birds of every shape and kind. Robins perched on branches, eagles soaring high above mountains, even tiny hummingbirds frozen mid-flight. Her dad used to say she had the gift of wings in her hands. But when he left, her hands felt empty. Her wings felt gone. She pulled herself out of bed, feet hitting the floor with a soft thud, and got dressed in slow, practiced motions. Downstairs, the house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Her mother had already left for her morning shift at the diner. There was a sticky note on the counter, "Have a good day, sweetheart. Toast is in the oven. I love you." Maya smiled faintly, but the words still felt distant. She slipped on her backpack and stepped outside onto the porch. The early breeze was cool against her face, the kind of cool that made you take a deeper breath without trying. She walked down the path from her house, kicking lightly at a pebble on the sidewalk. The world was quiet. Then, something floated through the air. Soft. Slow. Gentle. A single white feather drifted downward, twisting and dancing as if suspended by invisible threads. Maya stopped walking. She watched it fall from somewhere high above, a feather so bright it almost glowed against the dull sky. It didn't make sense. There were no birds around. No nests nearby, no reason at all for a feather to appear right in front of her, falling at the exact moment she stepped outside. But there it was. And it drifted. Straight toward her. Maya lifted her hand without thinking, palm open. The feather landed softly in the center of her hand, so delicate it barely seemed real. She held her breath, afraid that even breathing would make it blow away. Up close, the feather looked different. It wasn't just white, it shimmered faintly, edges glowing with a warm, golden tint, like the last rays of sunset caught inside it. She turned slowly in a circle, scanning the trees, the sky, the rooftops. Nothing. The neighborhood was still, empty, silent. "What are you?" she whispered. The feather didn't answer, of course. But staring at it, she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Warmth. A tiny flutter of hope. Her dad used to tell her stories about feathers. He said, feathers were messages, little reminders that you're never alone, that the world still had gentle things in it, even on hard days. He'd bring home feathers he found on hikes, tucking them behind her ear or placing them on her sketchbook, always smiling as he said, "Every feather is a promise." But when he left, there were no more feathers. No more stories. Until now. Maya closed her fingers around the feather carefully, gently, afraid it might vanish. The warmth spread up her hand like a small glow. She swallowed hard, feeling something tight inside her chest, loosen just a little. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe someone, somewhere, was telling her to hang on. She placed the feather in the front pocket of her backpack, close to her heart. As she walked toward the bus stop, she kept her hand pressed lightly over the pocket as if guarding something precious. The neighborhood was slowly waking. Lights flicked on in windows. A dog barked in the distance. The morning breeze rustled through the trees. But everything felt different now, brighter somehow, as if the world had shifted by a single, magical inch. Maya reached the corner where the school bus would soon arrive. A few other kids stood waiting, talking, laughing, scrolling on their phones. Maya usually kept to herself, standing quietly off to the side. Today, she did the same, but for the first time in months, she didn't feel completely alone. Her fingers brushed over the feather again. She whispered, "Thank you, whoever sent this." A sudden gust of wind brushed her hair, warm and unexpected. It felt almost like an answer, a gentle hand on her shoulder, a small reminder that she was stronger than she knew. She closed her eyes and let the warmth settle inside her, filling the empty spaces she had been carrying. The bus rumbled up the street, brakes sighing as it pulled to a stop. Kids climbed on, chatter echoing. Before stepping onto the bus, Maya took one last look at the sky, the same sky her dad was under somewhere far away. "I'll be brave today," she whispered. Not because everything was okay. Not because her pain was gone. But because a single feather reminded her that hope doesn't always arrive loud or obvious. Sometimes it falls quietly into your hand. On an ordinary morning. At exactly the moment you need it. Maya climbed onto the bus, unaware that this small feather, this tiny, impossible sign would soon lead her to someone who needed hope even more than she did. And she would become the sign in someone else's life. The bus door groaned open with its usual metal sigh, and Maya stepped inside, clutching the strap of her backpack with one hand while keeping the other over the pocket where the feather rested. The aisle buzzed with voices, kids, laughing, arguing, trading stories from the weekend. But Maya saw none of it. She kept her head down, gently moving past row after row until she reached her usual seat near the middle. She sat alone. She always sat alone. The bus lurched forward, rolling down the familiar streets of her neighborhood. Houses blurred past tiny squares of life full of people who were probably waking up, making breakfast, getting ready for their day. Maya stared out the window, letting her thoughts drift. Her fingers brushed the feather inside her pocket for reassurance. But then something unusual happened. A soft thump. A shuffle of feet. A hesitating voice near the front. Is there anywhere I can sit?" Maya looked up. A boy stood in the aisle, someone she'd never seen before. His backpack hung loosely from one strap, the fabric worn and frayed. His jacket was too thin for the weather, sleeves slightly too short. And his eyes, big, dark, uncertain, darted around the bus like he expected someone to yell at him for even existing. The other kids stared. Whispered. Smirked. New kids always got attention, but this was different. There was something fragile about him, like he was trying to make himself smaller, trying not to disturb the world more than necessary. The driver pointed down the aisle. "Just take whatever seat you find." He nodded timidly and shuffled forward, searching for an empty space. But every time he paused near a seat, someone slid their backpack over or threw a look that clearly meant not here. The boy shrank a little more each time. Maya felt something twist inside her chest. She knew that feeling of not quite fitting, of being invisible and too visible at the same time. The boy eventually found a spot in the very back, wedged into the corner by the window. He sat stiffly, staring at his hands, pretending not to notice the sideways glances. When the bus pulled into school, kids poured out eagerly. Maya stepped off slowly, watching the boy follow behind at a distance like he didn't want to take up any space. As they approached the school entrance, a gust of wind blew, brushing against Maya's jacket. She reached instinctively for her pocket, feeling the feather's soft outline. "Be brave today." Her dad's words echoed again, not from memory, but from somewhere deeper. Inside the school hallways, noise filled the air, lockers slamming, kids shouting greetings, sneakers squeaking on polished floors. Maya weaved through the crowd with her usual quietness. But her eyes kept flicking back, searching for the new boy. She spotted him near the office, speaking to the secretary. His posture was rigid, his mouth pressed into a nervous line. After a few moments, he walked toward his classroom, Maya's classroom. She blinked. So he was in her grade. Her heart fluttered, part curiosity, part something else she couldn't name. Inside the classroom, Mrs. Wilkins stood beside the chalkboard, organizing papers. When the bell rang, she clapped her hands lightly. "Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, we have a new student joining us today." She gestured toward the boy standing beside her, hands tucked into his sleeves. "This is Eli." A few students exchanged glances. Some snickered under their breath. But Eli stared at the floor, shoulders tense. Mrs. Wilkins smiled kindly. "Eli, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?" He swallowed. My name is Eli. I moved here recently. That's wonderful, the teacher encouraged. What do you like to do? Eli hesitated, voice small. I used to play guitar. Used to. A boy in the back muttered loudly. What happened? Guitar break. A ripple of laughter spread across the room. Eli's face turned red. He shook his head. No, it burned. And the room fell silent. Mrs. Wilkins' expression softened. Thank you for sharing, Eli. You can take that seat near the window. Eli nodded and moved to the empty seat in the second row right beside Maya. He sat carefully, like he didn't want to disturb the chair. Maya glanced at him, wanting to say anything but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she touched the feather again, grounding herself. She could almost hear its quiet whisper, go on. At lunchtime, Maya carried her tray to her usual corner table. The cafeteria buzzed with voices and clattering dishes. She sat down quietly, sipping her milk, scanning the room without meaning to. That's when she saw him. Eli stood in the middle of the room, holding his tray awkwardly, searching for a spot. But every table seemed full. Or rather, everyone pretended it was. A group of boys waved him over. Hey new kid. Over here. Eli's face brightened only for a second. Because when he approached, one boy smirked and slid his leg across the seat, blocking it. Oops. Guess there's no space. 8. Laughter erupted. Eli stepped back quickly, nearly dropping his tray. The cafeteria noise swallowed him, but Maya heard the quietness around him, the kind of quiet that hurts. He turned slowly, face falling, eyes dimming, and headed toward the only empty place left, a small table near the trash cans. He sat alone, picking at his food without eating. Maya felt the feather warm in her pocket, as if urging her forward. Her heart pounded. She wasn't used to being brave. She wasn't used to drawing attention. But something inside her, something gentle and fierce, rose up. She stood, picked up her tray, took a deep breath, and walked across the cafeteria. Every step felt like stepping through thick air. Her palms felt sweaty. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears. But she didn't stop. When she reached Eli's table, she placed her tray across from his and sat down. He looked up, startled. Hi, Maya said softly. I'm Maya. Eli blinked. Why? Why are you sitting here? Because no one should sit alone, she said simply. Eli stared at her for a long moment, as if trying to understand something that didn't make sense. Then, slowly, a faint, grateful smile appeared. Thanks, he whispered. They ate quietly, but it wasn't an awkward silence. It was gentle. Safe. The beginning of something neither of them recognized yet but both desperately needed. And as they sat together, Maya felt the feather's warmth again. As if it knew. This was exactly where she was supposed to be. For the first time in what felt like forever, Maya walked through school with a feeling she couldn't quite explain. It wasn't loud or bright, it wasn't the kind of happiness that made you run or jump or laugh. It was gentler. Quieter. Like the warmth of a lamp in the corner of a dark room. Eli walked beside her now. Not always right next to her, they weren't that bold yet, but close enough that they shared the same orbit, the same small pocket of space in a world that often felt too big for both of them. In the days after she sat with him at lunch, something shifted. People still whispered about him. Some still snickered. But Maya didn't move away from him. She didn't shrink back. She didn't pretend she didn't know him. And Eli noticed. On Wednesday, he walked into class and glanced toward Maya's seat, hopeful in a shy, careful way. When their eyes met, she smiled. He smiled back. Just a small smile. But it was enough. At lunch, they sat together again. They talked a little more each day. And by Friday, it felt almost natural, as if they had always shared a table, always walked to class together, always existed in each other's quiet corners. But the real beginning of their friendship started on a cloudy afternoon when Maya found him sitting alone by the playground fence after school. He was kicking at the dirt, shoulders hunched tightly, eyes fixed on the ground. She approached cautiously. Eli? You okay? He didn't look up. Yeah. The word was too small to hold the weight in his voice. Maya's hand drifted to her backpack pocket, brushing the feather. Warmth spread through her fingers. She sat down beside him. Neither spoke for a long moment. Kids rushed past, heading for the buses. Teachers waved goodbye. The sky smelled like rain, heavy and thick, but the world around them seemed to slow down, settling into a deeper quiet. Finally, Eli whispered, "It's been a hard week." Maya turned her head slightly. "Because of what happened?" He nodded, still staring at the ground. "People here, they don't know. They just think I'm weird. Or quiet. Or nothing." "You're not nothing," Maya said quickly, quicker than she expected. "They just don't understand." Eli inhaled shakily. "It's been like this since the fire. Ever since." He stopped, swallowing hard. Maya waited. She didn't push. She didn't ask. She just sat beside him, quiet, steady, present. Finally, he continued. "My house burned down 3 months ago. Everything we had." His voice trembled. "My guitar. My books. My clothes. My drawings. My grandma's blanket. All of it." Maya's breath caught. She remembered the kids in the cafeteria laughing, the way Eli tried to make himself small, as if hoping he could disappear fast enough to avoid their eyes. She remembered the way his shoulders curled inward whenever someone mentioned the word, home. She understood it now. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Eli shrugged, but the shrug was cracked around the edges. "We're staying in a shelter now. Just until my mom finds a job. But it's loud. Crowded. Sometimes it feels like I'm always in the way." "You're not." Her voice was firm this time. "You're never in the way." Something in him broke, not the kind of breaking that destroys, but the kind that finally lets the truth breathe. He rubbed his eyes quickly, embarrassed. "I didn't mean to talk about all that." Pleasant 12. "I'm glad you did," Maya said. Silence settled again, comfortable this time. Then Eli looked at her, really looked, and asked, "Why did you sit with me that day?" Maya hesitated. Her fingers touched the feather through the pocket. "Because," she took a slow breath. "I know what it feels like to need someone." Eli blinked. "You do." "My dad's been gone for almost a year. He's deployed. I try not to think about it, but..." Her throat tightened. "Some days, it's really hard." Eli's expression softened. "Do you miss him a lot?" Maya nodded. "Every day." They sat together under the heavy clouds, two small figures in a world that often felt bigger and heavier than they could carry. But in that moment, the weight felt shared, less lonely, less sharp. A tiny smile tugged at the corner of Eli's lips. "I'm glad you were brave enough to sit with me." Maya blushed. "I didn't feel brave." "Maybe bravery feels like that," Eli said quietly. "Small. Not loud, but real." Her heart warmed. And without thinking, she said, "Want to walk home with me?" "My bus is late today." Eli nodded. They walked slowly, their backpacks bumping gently with each step. They didn't talk much, but the silence between them felt different now, full of unspoken understanding. As they passed the row of maple trees near the edge of school property, a gust of wind blew. Maya reached into her pocket to keep the feather from flying away. Eli noticed. "What's that?" Maya hesitated. The feather felt almost alive, warm against her fingers. "It's something special. Can I see?" She pulled it out carefully. Eli's eyes widened. "Wow." His voice was hushed, reverent. "It looks magical." "It's not magical," Maya said, but she wasn't entirely sure. "It kind of is," Eli whispered. "It's the most beautiful thing I've seen in a long time." Maya watched him. The way his fingers twitched slightly, as if longing to touch it but afraid to ask. The way his gaze softened with something deeper, longing, loss, hope. "It makes you feel less alone," she said quietly. Like someone's helping you, even when they're not there. Eli swallowed. I wish I had something like that. Something inside Maya shifted. A tiny ache. A recognition. She looked at the feather. Then, at Eli. The feather had found her on a day she needed hope. But maybe, just maybe, it hadn't been meant for her all along. Not just for her. Not only for her. Maybe it had been guiding her to him. To this moment. She tucked the feather back into her pocket gently, but her mind stayed fixed on Eli's eyes, on the emptiness hidden behind his quiet smile. Maybe you will, she said softly. Maybe something good is coming. Eli nodded, though he didn't seem convinced. But Maya saw it. A spark. A tiny flicker of light. Their friendship didn't burst into existence, it didn't explode with dramatic declarations or large gestures. It grew quietly day by day, moment by moment, in the soft space between two hurting hearts learning how to trust again. And though neither of them knew it yet, this tiny, fragile friendship was about to become the beginning of something extraordinary. The sky was painted with soft shades of lavender as the school day ended. The golden light of late afternoon spilled across the playground, stretching shadows long and thin. Children scattered in clusters, laughing, shouting, chasing each other before their parents arrived. But off to the side, beneath the old oak tree that had seen decades of students come and go, sat Maya and Eli. It had become their spot. Quiet. Hidden, safe. Eli leaned back against the tree trunk, knees pulled up, watching his shoes trace circles in the dirt. Maya sat cross-legged beside him, backpack in her lap, sketchbook resting loosely in her hands. She still didn't draw much, but lately she had begun opening the pages again, staring at the empty paper without fear. Not yet ready to create, but ready to try. Today, however, neither of them spoke much. They both carried a heaviness that afternoon, different heaviness, but somehow equally felt. Maya sensed it the moment Eli walked into class that morning. He seemed tired, drained, like the world had pressed a hand firmly against his small shoulders. His smile, usually soft but present, was nowhere to be found. Now, under the tree, he looked even more fragile. Bad day? Maya finally asked. He nodded silently. Maya waited. She had learned that Eli spoke in his own time, in his own way, like someone opening a door only when it was safe to do so. After a minute, he whispered, "The shelter is full again." Her heart tightened. "My mom says we might have to switch to the older one across town. The one with the metal bunks and the smell." His voice cracked. "There's no space. And everything I have is in a plastic bag." He swallowed hard. "I don't even have my guitar anymore. I don't have a room. I don't have anything that feels actually mine." Maya felt a sting in her eyes. She took a slow breath, letting the honesty of his pain sink into the quiet place between them. "That must be really hard," she said softly. Eli didn't cry, but his shoulders curved inward as if trying to protect a heart that had already been broken too many times. "I wish I had something," he said suddenly, his voice trembling. "Just one thing. One thing I could keep. That can't be taken or burned or thrown away." Maya's hand moved subconsciously toward her backpack. Toward the feather. She felt its warmth through the fabric like a small pulse, a tiny heartbeat. A reminder of the morning it first came to her, drifting out of nowhere and landing in her hand like a secret message. The feather had been her anchor. Her quiet courage. Her reminder of her dad, of hope, of light in the places that felt too dark. But looking at Eli now with his empty hands, his tired eyes, his world held together by fragile threads, something inside her shifted. A realization. A clarity. A truth. Hope was never meant to be kept. Slowly, she unzipped her backpack. Eli watched her, confused but curious. She reached inside and closed her fingers around the feather, feeling its soft warmth one last time. Then she pulled it out. The feather gleamed in the fading sunlight, white with a faint golden glow along the edges, as if carrying a piece of the sun itself. Eli gasped softly. You brought it again." "It's important to me," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "Yeah. It should be. It's beautiful." Maya took a deep breath. Then she held it out toward him. Eli stared, frozen. What? What are you doing? I want you to have it, Maya said simply. Eli's head snapped up, eyes wide. No. Maya, no. You can't. It's yours. It was mine, she said. But I think, it was meant for you. Eli shook his head fiercely. I can't take that. It means something to you. I know it does. It does, she admitted. It's helped me a lot. Her voice trembled as she spoke, because the idea of letting it go hurt more than she expected. But maybe it came to me so I could give it to someone else when they needed it more. Eli looked at her as if she had just handed him the sun. But why me? Maya's voice softened. Because you're trying so hard to stay strong. Because you keep going even when everything feels impossible. Because you deserve something beautiful. Something that's yours. Eli's lip quivered. His fingers moved toward the feather, hesitant, almost scared. Are you sure? He whispered. Maya nodded. Yes. He touched the feather with trembling fingers. It glowed faintly under his touch. And then the world changed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But in a way that felt deep and irreversible, like the first breath after holding it too long, or the first ray of sunlight breaking through a storm. Eli brought the feather closer to his chest, cradling it with both hands. His eyes filled with tears. He tried desperately to blink away. No one's ever given me something like this, he whispered. Not since, before the fire. Maya swallowed hard. Now you have something. Something you can keep. He nodded, wiping his cheek. I'll protect it. I promise. I won't let anything happen to it. I know, she said. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind moved gently through the leaves above them. The world felt soft. Sacred. Then Eli looked at her with eyes shining through tears. Maya. This is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. Maya felt a warmth bloom inside her chest, different from the feather's warmth, deeper, fuller. The kind of warmth that came from doing something brave and kind and right. She smiled. Eli held the feather tightly, his breathing evening out, his shoulders relaxing. And in that moment, Maya saw it clearly. The feather no longer belonged to her. It had found the person it was meant for. For the rest of the afternoon, they sat together under the tree, talking quietly, laughing softly, sharing small pieces of themselves they had never shared with anyone else. And as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Because hope doesn't disappear when you give it away. It multiplies. It grows. It comes back to you in unexpected ways, like a feather drifting through the sky on an ordinary morning. She didn't know it yet, but giving that feather to Eli would become the moment everything in her world shifted. And the universe, as if hearing her silent courage, was already preparing a miracle of its own. The next morning, Meadow Ridge felt strangely lighter, as though the town itself had taken a deep breath after years of holding it in. Light spilled across rooftops, reflecting off frost-tipped grass and drifting in golden ribbons through the pines. The storm had passed, but a softness remained in the air, an unmistakable hush, like a world waiting for something beautiful to happen. And something beautiful did happen. It began at Maple Street Bakery, the tiniest shop in town, owned by 7-8-year-old Mrs. Renly, known for her kindness, her cinnamon rolls, and her refusal to ever raise prices. Her shop had survived pandemics, storms, and economic dips, but the last few years had been unkind. A leaking roof, thinning savings, and rising costs left her with only one employee, herself. Yet every morning, she opened her doors with a smile. At exactly 7:03 a.m. the bell above her door jingled. In walked Delara, cheeks pink from the cold, gloves tucked into her jacket pocket. But this time, she wasn't holding her backpack tightly like usual. She wasn't walking with her head down. She seemed taller, steadier, like a girl who had discovered something inside herself she didn't know existed. She carried a small envelope. Something white peeked out of the top. Mrs. Renly greeted her with a warm chuckle. Back already, sweetheart? You're my most loyal customer, even though you always only buy one cookie. Elara smiled shyly. Actually, I'm not here for a cookie today. Mrs. Renly paused, surprised. Elara stepped forward and placed the envelope gently on the counter. Her hand lingered on it for a moment, as though saying goodbye to something important. Inside was the feather, the same one she had clung to the night before. The feather that saved a stranger. The feather that taught her courage. The feather that had held her through years of loneliness. Mrs. Renly looked confused. What's this, dear? It's, Elara swallowed, the words catching. It's something that helped me. Something that made me brave. I don't need it anymore. I want you to have it. Elara swallowed, the words coming, manjin, dusnamading, and Elara swallowed, the words catching. The old woman opened the envelope and lifted the feather with her wrinkled fingers. It shimmered faintly in the morning light, delicate yet strong. My goodness, she whispered. It's beautiful. It reminds you not to give up, Elara said softly. Even when nobody sees you. Even when you feel small. Mrs. Renly's eyes grew wet. Elara continued, voice deader now. And I thought. Maybe you could use some luck too. The old woman's breath trembled. No teenager had ever said something like that to her, much less given her anything but a few coins for pastries. Elara, she murmured, this is the kindest thing anyone has done for me in years. Elara took a small step back, suddenly nervous. It helped save my life once, she said. And last night, it saved someone else's. Mrs. Renly's eyes widened. Elara. What happened? But before Elara could answer, the bell above the door chimed again. Jonah stepped inside. Fresh bandages wrapped his wrist. His dark curls were still damp from the morning air. His backpack sagged, but not with the same defeated heaviness it had before. When his eyes met Elara's, something softened. Something grateful. Something wordless, but deep. Elara. His voice cracked a little. I wanted to say thank you. Mrs. Renly blinked between the two teens. Oh my. You two know each other. Elara nodded slowly. We met last night. On the bridge. Jonah's face went pale. Mrs. Renly covered her mouth. Sweet heavens. It's okay, Elara assured her. He's safe now. Jonah exhaled shakily. Because of her. They stood in a circle of warm bakery, Light the elderly shop owner, the girl with the feather, and the boy who didn't jump. The smell of fresh bread wrapped around them like a blanket. Mrs. Renly walked around the counter and gave Jonah the gentlest hug he had ever received. Then she rested a hand on Elara's shoulder. You two are the reason this world still works, she whispered. People think kindness is gone, but it's not. It's right here. Elara felt her throat tighten. Jonah's eyes filled again. I didn't think anyone would care, he said quietly. But you did. Elara stepped closer. You matter, she said. Even when you feel like you don't. Even when the world feels heavy. A silence followed, deep, fragile, perfect. Mrs. Renly breathed in and straightened her apron. Well, she said, wiping at her eyes, if this day is going to start with miracles, then the least I can do is feed the ones making them happen. She brought out warm buns and 2 glasses of hot chocolate topped with marshmallows on the house, no arguments allowed. As they ate, Elara watched Jonah's shoulders relax, watched his color return, watched him slowly rediscover the simple act of breathing without pain. And Jonah watched Elara too, this quiet girl who seemed so small, yet carried an entire universe of light inside her. At one point, Jonah asked. Why did you stop for me? Elara looked down at her hands. Because once, she whispered, I wished someone had stopped for me. Jonah's chest ached, not with sorrow this time, but with something like awe. Mrs. Renly slid the feather back across the table toward Elara. My dear, this feather belongs with you. But Elara shook her head. No. It's meant to travel. To help the next person who needs it. Jonah touched the feather gently. Then maybe I'll hold on to it for now. Just until I'm strong enough. Then I'll pass it on. Elara nodded. Mrs. Renly smiled through tears. The feather had begun its journey. A girl saved a boy. A boy found hope. An old woman found belief. And a simple token light as air carried forward a legacy of courage. Outside, the sun climbed higher, scattering gold across Meadow Ridge. People stepped out of their homes. Cars rumbled along Maple Street. Life moved forward, unaware that inside a tiny bakery, a miracle had quietly taken root. But its ripples would spread. Because kindness, no matter how small, moves like the wind. Even a single feather can change the direction of a life. And 3 hearts, brought together by chance and compassion, now carried something the world desperately needed. Proof that one gentle act can save someone. And inspire many more. The world shifted that morning. All because one girl refused to walk away.